The Pink Pulpits Podcast, the gospel according to her. The Pink Pulpits Podcast explores the living, learning, and leading of women in the 21st century. How does the modern woman handle the world the gospel way? This podcast is for women in ministry, women surrounded by ministry, and so many more. Join us weekly on Saturdays at 6 p.m. for the Pink Pulpits Podcast, the gospel according to her.
Welcome to your next episode of the Pink Pulpit Podcast with me, Lady Nicole Green. This truly is the gospel according to her. This is the platform of life's gospel for women, by women. And, I've got a lot of men watching now too, so I'm talking to you too. No matter your ministry, whether you're in the pulpit of life, the pulpit of the marketplace, or the pulpit of ministry, this is the podcast where you hear from real women doing real ministry in their platform, in their pulpit, and with real life stories that I believe truly matter. We talk about stories of life, but we also help to navigate you and guide you as you are establishing your own pulpit wherever you may be. So sit back, relax, get you something to drink, get your pen, your paper, or your pad, and let's get ready to dive into this conversation today as we do the gospel according to her. You guys know that we have been in this entire series of the power of. And I hope that you have been empowered and that you have tapped into a new level of power so that you can embark upon just polarizing anything that stands in your way as you are walking in your own personal pulpit. But today, I want to talk about the power of position. I know you're talking about what kind of position could you be talking about, Lady Nicole, right? I really believe that you have to be purposeful in getting in the right position so that you can be able to accomplish and do what you've been called to do, but do it in a way that continues to exemplify excellence and the power of God. Positioning is so critical to being and doing what you're supposed to be doing and being. I know you said that was like a tongue twister, right? Because I need you to really understand, because I think sometimes we think, well, I'll just get there, or I'll just get in position, or, I'll just figure out where I need to be. But there's a power in being in position and being in the position at the right time, on the right day, with the right things. Right time, right day, with the right things. So I want to talk about Mary. Mary is like this profound, iconic woman in the Bible. And a lot of her choices always led to her being properly positioned for purposeful interaction with Jesus. In his Bible exposition contemporary, Warren Worsby notes that each time Mary is mentioned in Luke and John, she is in the same place at the feet of Jesus. She sat at his feet and listened to his word and fell at his feet and shared in his woe. That was in John 11:32, and came to his feet and poured out her worship in John 12:3. Remember now, Mary was a friend of Jesus. Mary was, she really was to me the epitome of learning how to be in relationship, but she was always dedicated to being in the right position. Each time she was positioned at Jesus's feet, and her interaction with him caused her to do or receive exactly what was needed in that moment. Do you see where I'm going? It is power in being in the right position. Now, in Luke 10, she's sitting at Jesus' feet, and during a banquet in ancient Israel, people would usually be found seated upon chairs or lounging on couches. But when Jesus was present, his disciples would sit at his feet and listen to their teacher. Mary clearly did the unthinkable. I mean, she did something that wasn't normal. And she positioned herself as a disciple, one who sought to learn from Jesus. And her position increased not only her love for Jesus, but also her understanding of his message. There's power in position. She listened and she learned. And because she took that position, she was prepared to share the gospel when the time was right. Falling at Jesus' feet after her brother Lazarus died, Mary, it gave Jesus her burdens, her pain, her hurts, and her fears. And I want you to understand, position can be a place of power, but it can also be a place of humility. Like her sister, Mary said, Lord, if only you had been here, you all know the story, right? My brother wouldn't have died. And Martha says then the same words of criticism and complaint. But when we read that statement in light of Mary's position, she was at Jesus's feet. Martha was not. And watch this. Watch this. We see them as words spoken in confidence and love versus complaint and criticism. There is power in being in the right position. I think if the Bible had pictured her running to Jesus, standing face to face with him, and saying those very same words, we would have a different conversation, a different sense of how she felt and what the intent was. But because we saw and see her at Jesus's feet, positioned, she shared her grief, her sorrow, and it causes her to see and be seen differently. We see her humility. We see her desire to put her faith in the power and the authority of Jesus. She didn't come really complaining or criticizing. She positioned herself to be in faith. And it was a position of power and relinquishing the hurt and saying, hey, God, hey, Jesus, I'm hurting. Mary's position, I believe, got Jesus's attention. And Jesus felt her pain in that moment. And he loved her brother. And in fact, Lazarus' death caused Jesus to cry. You remember, it says Jesus wept. That's a scripture that anybody can find. You ask somebody to tell you the scripture, they'd be like, Jesus wept. So we know that Jesus loved Lazarus. And it hurt him, obviously, too. And he understood her pain. He understood her feelings. But I believe that her position caused Jesus to see that she really wanted to know how he could help her and how she could get out and better from how she was feeling. Jesus saw her and knew her in that right position. I believe that even when we worship, when we exalt God, there's power in what position we're in when we do that. It's a story that I'm still talking about Mary. A few days before the Passover celebration, Jesus returns to Bethany and he has dinner with Mary. And Martha and Lazarus, once again, Mary positioned herself at Jesus's feet. This time it wasn't to sit and learn, nor to fall in sorrow, but to pour out her love to him in a sacrificial and a way of saying, I'm grateful and thankful. It was a humble act, and she poured expensive oil on his feet and then wiped his feet. Y'all know that story? And she did it with her hair. And in this time and period, it was unheard of for a Jewish woman to let down her hair. Yet, When she came to the feet of Jesus, she took the place, what people would say a slave kind of, sort of, and humbled herself and laid herself to the glory of God at his feet. Mary may not have even realized in that very moment how powerful her action was, where she positioned herself. This was a great purposeful shift of positioning. And every culture has customs surrounding burial, including the ancient Israelites. And they would prepare the body with spices and oils, reflecting their belief in an afterlife. And after Jesus' death at Calvary, Joseph and Nicodemus hurriedly took his body, wrapped it in linen and spices, and placed him in a tomb because it was a Sabbath when no one could do work, right? It was Mary's unexpected offering while Jesus was still alive that readily positioned his body for the purpose that he came. Still today, Jesus wants us to choose what is better and position ourselves.
Enjoying the Pink Pulpits podcast? Be sure to like and follow us on Spotify at Pink Pulpits Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube at Pink Pulpits Podcast. Like and save our website at pinkpulpits.org and get our amazing No More Silly Women app to get all updates on the Pink Pulpits Podcast. And remember, it's the gospel according to her.
Or you're in position to really just worship God. There's power in all of it. But the greatest power is how you position yourself in worship to God and position yourself in relationship with God. And what I want you to know spiritually, this means choosing to be in a relationship with God over the busyness of life, over the busyness of going after that thing, over the busyness of trying to attack that thing. All of those things are important. You got to be in the right position. You got to be in the right place, and you got to be with the right tools. And the tool that I wanted you to really get in position for today is really getting into a posture in a position with God. And not allowing the busyness of, getting the bag or being the boss keep you from understanding the greatest powerful position is being at the feet of Jesus, being in worship, being in relationship. When we're intentionally spending time with God, we get to know him and his ways and his word, and then we're empowered to going to get the boss, being the boss and going to get the bag. This sometimes means we have to make the sacrifice that others cannot understand or what others will never understand. And I mean, this is so big, especially right now. They say that over 42% of people have fallen away from the church. 42%. That's ridiculous. That's where the greatest power, where your strength, where your answer, your solution, everything comes from there, and people have fallen away from it. And I really want you to understand, people think that it's okay to worship online and it's okay not to be in a building. It's like Jesus is everywhere. No, this is his chosen place and his chosen institution. He said the church is it. And what I'm saying to you is there's a power in being positioned in the house of God. There's power in being positioned in relationship with him, and not one that you kind of tuck in throughout the busyness of life. What I want you to understand is what Mary realized is our God is worth the sacrifice. Our God is worth pressing past comfort, pressing past, hey, let me just kind of make this a part of my overall list of agenda and items. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to take the kids to the football. I got to take them to soccer. I got to, let me do a whole bunch of stuff on Sunday versus establishing, no, let me position myself in the place where God is established, where he's going to be on any given Sunday. Man, any given Sunday, You need to be positioned in the house of God. And there's power there. Your connection is there. Your hope is there. Positioning ourselves before him in the natural means staying open to his pruning so we can continue to grow. And previously I spoke about women in ministry whom what God was pruning. And you can go back in the power of, and she realized she had too much to do and that she could not grow in her busy space. So she delegated some of the word, and God opened up doors for her as a result. What I'm saying today is the power of being positioned where God is going to be on any given Sunday is going to open up new doors of opportunity and new doors of God increasing you because you decided to position yourself at his feet. You decided to position yourself to learn and live in the presence of God. You decided to come into an environment that can uplift you and grow. Do not take lightly being in the right position and knowing that there's power in it. If you feel frustrated with where you are in life, or if you're not growing, you may not be positioned properly. You may need to reprioritize, reorganize, and delegate some things in your life so you can shift into the right position and then begin to grow. When you're in the right position, God can change our situations overnight. And I call it an instant elevation. And it's mind-blowing that God is just looking for us to position ourselves correctly so that he can elevate us. God can change our situations overnight. And it takes only a second for God to place you on someone's heart, to place you on someone's mind, to place you on in a conversation that takes you to a different place. And they could change your entire life in a matter of minutes. One phone call, one email, one mention of your name, one viral YouTube video, one podcast, 1 second exposure of your gift to the right person because you were in the right position. But we miss the opportunity because we're out of position. We miss the opportunity because we decided something else was more important. We miss the opportunity because we think that we can take ourselves sometimes further. This may be an opening at work that seems impossible. And you're trying to figure out, how can I get it? I don't maybe have all the right credentials, but when you are positioned properly, God can influence people to make decisions that will open up doors for you. But when you are positioned properly, God will rightly ensure that what you are supposed to have coming gets to you. Being in the right position at the right time will make all the difference in the world. Unlike some of the stories in this Bible, Mary did not come to the Lord in dire need or in a crisis. She came with a desire. And that desire was to learn, grow, and become more like him. And the Lord God rewarded her positioning herself. She set up the elevation. She was more concerned about being in position than performance. Mary, remember, in that dynamic, Martha was rebuked for being worried about everything except being in the right position. But as Martha progressed, she shifted her attitude in her service. And I believe that she refocused her energy not on what she was doing, but on why she was doing it. So I pray that as you've listened to this podcast, that you begin to consider if I'm in the right position for God to do something great in my life. Have I made other things a priority and not made the things of Him my priority? Was I only asking God to meet my needs or help me accomplish my to-do list? Or was I really seeking Him? Am I in His house every given Sunday? Was I thanking Him for being my God and for being my help? I don't want to seek God for what He can do for me. I want to seek God because of just who He is. You got to be in position so that worshiping Him allows us to experience the fullness of His Spirit in our lives and receive the strength and power to accomplish all the tasks that you've been trying to accomplish to get that bag and to be the boss. And as we shift our priorities, as we get in the right position to truly seek God, I believe we'll receive power, we'll receive greater anointing, and we'll receive favor that cannot be matched. You got to keep putting into practice positioning yourself. You've learned and received so much through this podcast. And my prayer is that you are continuously tapping into the power of being in the right position. Saturdays here on the Pink Pulpit Podcast. As you spend more time with God, you will receive the peace of God. You receive the power. And I believe that shifting your position today will cause a shift in God opening and pursuing you in a greater way. So just know there's power in position. And ask yourself, what position are you in any given Sunday? All given Sundays. And make a decision that I'm going to get in the greatest powerful position known, at the feet of Jesus. I look forward to seeing you all next week as we continue the conversation, the gospel according to her. This is the Pink Pulpit Podcast with me, Lady Nicole Green. This is the platform of life's gospel for women and those that want to learn about more this conversation. But it is by women. No matter your ministry, whether you're in the pulpit of life, the pulpit of ministry, or the pulpit of the marketplace, know this, that the only way we're doing it is the gospel according to her. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you next time.
Tune in next week for the Pink Pulpits Podcast, the gospel according to her. Be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe to this amazing weekly podcast with your host, Lady Nicole Green. That's right, the Pink Pulpits Podcast, the gospel according to her.